Alright, boys, I must clarify some things about Winamp because I did receive some feedback on my channel, which is good. If you have a comment, please let me know because I don't fucking watch these things before they go out. I don't know what the fuck I'm saying. So basically though, when I made that Winamp video, my point was Winamp is mostly proprietary, and not in the good way, as in like most of the source code does not belong to them. So when you have a program that's 1.7 gigs of source code and 1.5 gigs of that is actually an Intel blob, what you end up with is you can't make that open source. It just doesn't work, because like how are you going to redistribute that Intel blob? So right now they're looking for exceptions to all these blobs, and I don't know if they're going to be able to do much about it. Cause like, okay, so even if you stripped out the Intel thing and you rewrote every single thing from scratch that was in there and you made it all work with the original Winamp code, you're left with a shell. I mean, like basically, like I don't think you could even build this without that Intel blob and have an MP3 player that actually plays MP3s. Because let's face it, they're probably not using lame for this. They're probably using some proprietary MP3 codec or whatever. I don't even know. Not codec, but you know what I mean. And so like you'll have a player that can't actually play anything because none of the source code belonged to them in the first place. So even though they're open sourcing it, they've got so many licensed technologies in there that you end up with you got to rewrite it basically. And that was why I mentioned that Audacious and XMMS ended up being the proper solution to that, where let's face it, Winamp is like ancient Windows code. There's probably nothing of value in there. And now that it has been open source, good job. We have the source code. Everything's cool. Fuck off. You know what I mean? Like they have released the source code and it is available now, but you just can't get it on GitHub. So, okay, now what do you do with it? Like, because we already have several projects going on that try to recreate everything Winamp did, and they do it in an open source way. So that's why I was saying that if you write a program from the ground up to be proprietary, you can't really open source it unless it just has no dependencies whatsoever. And the most recent examples I could think of are like Apache, and because Apache will get a lot of donations of proprietary code, but uh, OpenTunes was like the one I could think of where it was like this massive, like proprietary animation software, and they were able to open source it. But I can't imagine how much work would have gone into that to re-implement everything in an open source way unless they had already built it from the ground up for that purpose. Because that's the thing about proprietary programs is they aren't meant to be open source. So it would be cool if they were open source, but at that point you have to rewrite everything. So why not make a separate project that does what it's supposed to? Does the open source thing that it says it's going to do, rather than try and manipulate old source code into an open source program. And that's kind of what I was getting at, is just that there was about zero point 0.2 gigs of Winamp source code that actually belonged to them. So there's no way to open source it. You just can't do it. But anyways, yeah, that was just some feedback on the channel. I also apologize for struggling for air or whatever the fuck I was doing in that intro. I usually cut those out or I re-record if that happens, but I decided not to that time as for like a comedic reason. And yeah. But anyways, that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.